At 8 p.m., 2 hours after they made their plan of staying up all night and waiting for the Tooth Fairy, Audrey and Jewel were in their sleeping bags, pretending to be asleep and waiting for the Tooth Fairy to arrive and take Audrey's tooth that she lost. Audrey had placed her tooth next to her pillow so the Tooth Fairy wouldn't miss it. She was lying with her body towards the window. The sun had finally set, turning the sky from a pink lemonade color to a plum-colored purple. The full moon was out and shining through the glass of the exposed curtainless window. Audrey wasn't tired at all. She was wide awake and excited and nervous all at the same time. She kept staring at the window, eager to see a tiny flying fairy entering the attic. Audrey didn't know what Jewel was doing. She didn't want to look away just in case she had missed the Tooth Fairy's arrival, because she didn't know how fast the Tooth Fairy would be in collecting her tooth. If she disappeared after she got the tooth, or didn't even show up at all, Audrey kept her big green eyes open and wide, staring and waiting. For what seemed like an eternity, Audrey's eyes were getting very heavy. She was extremely sleepy and didn't know how much longer she could stay awake. She raised her head a little to see if her tooth was still next to her pillow. It was. A mixture of happiness and despair filled Audrey's insides. She was happy that she hadn't missed the Tooth Fairy, but also upset that she hadn't shown up yet. She picked up her tooth and glanced over at the clock on the wall, opposite to the window. It read 10:30 p.m. Audrey sighed. It wasn't that late. She figured she could rest her eyes just for a little bit. She didn't know what Jewel was doing, but she wasn't too interested. She placed her tooth back next to her pillow and lay her head on her pillow, figuring it wouldn't matter if she stayed awake or not. She closed her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Audrey was standing in a green meadow. Birds could be heard chirping happily. The sun was shining over the green grass, and the yellow and white daisies were planted in the grass. The sky was a bright blue like a sapphire. The air smelled fresh of daisies and fresh-cut grass. Audrey looked down. She wasn't wearing her Hello Kitty pajamas anymore. Instead, she had on a beautiful springy dress. It was sleeveless, but it had straps about the width of her index finger and went down to her knees. It was a bright blue flowing dress that were covered with orange, yellow, red, and green flowers and green leaves. Her feet were bare, but that didn't matter. Grass was soft and fuzzy against her skin. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun and tied with a flowery hair tie covered with red and orange flowers. Audrey looked around. She wasn't alone. Jewel wasn't anywhere. She was alone. Jewel wasn't anywhere to be seen. Audrey didn't feel nervous. She felt happy and safe in this new place. She looked past the small grassy hill filled with daisies. She could see some sort of building. It looked like a castle. She started to head towards it. As she got closer to it, it began to look more and more like a castle. Audrey studied it. It was built quite oddly. It wasn't structured out of brick or wood. The walls were made up of unusual tiny white objects. Audrey had never seen such a different castle. She walked towards one of the castle walls and peered at the structure. The objects were teeth. Thousands and millions of little teeth were holding this castle together. Audrey was in the Tooth Fairy's kingdom. She had found where the Tooth Fairy lived and what she does with the teeth. Audrey laughed and danced around a little bit. She couldn't believe any of this was real, but it was. She had never felt happier. She couldn't wait to tell Jewel and all of her friends back home about what she had seen. Just then, she heard a sound. It was a very faint sound that could scarcely be heard. Audrey listened hard. She heard it again. It was a voice. A little girl's voice calling something out. It kept calling, getting louder and louder until it was right in her ear. Audrey covered her ears, but it was too loud. The voice was yelling out her name. Audrey! Audrey! Audrey didn't know what was happening. She just wanted the voice to go away and stay in the beautiful kingdom and find the Tooth Fairy. The voice wouldn't stop. She shut her eyes tight, and the next thing she knew, she could feel herself being shaken, and the voice was clear and right next to her.